complaints. The bill goes short in providing for timelines within which complaints raised should be addressed. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw a parallel between gambling, the gambling industry, and the alcoholic drinks industry. The alcoholic drinks industry in this country is regulated and raises substantial revenues for the economy of this country. But on the opposite side, let us look at the harm that alcoholic drinks trade has visited on individuals, families, communities, and society. And although this bill promises that rehabilitation centers for those addicted to gambling can be built, why haven't we built rehabs for those addicted to alcohol? And therefore, unless this bill is ring-fencing a portion of the revenues that the government is raising from this industry to go towards harm reduction, prevention is always better than cure. This bill is silent on harm reduction, on the documented effects of gambling on addicts and families and communities. The government, this government, cannot just concentrate on the revenue side of things. This government has a duty to protect its citizens and communities from the harmful effects of gambling. This government has a duty to prevent large proportions of our population from falling into gambling. This bill offers no protection for the poorest of the poor. And in fact, this bill moves a step further to entice those who earn below the daily minimum wage into gambling by setting a minimum threshold of 20 shillings. If today our communities are crying out of the 100 shillings that our people are being asked to bet on media houses, what about when we bring it down to 20 shillings? Mr. Speaker, this bill is short on stopping media houses from conducting gambling business. They say the bill exempts minors from visiting casinos. How do you exempt minors from visiting casinos when radio stations and TV stations have become casinos right inside the living rooms of our families? Mr. Speaker, addiction, be it from gambling, be it from alcohol, be it from drugs, has brought a lot of suffering on individuals, psychological suffering on families, stigma on families, societies, and communities. This bill does not ameliorate any of those effects, harmful effects, that we are all aware of. And therefore, even as there is a proposal to reduce tax, I think we should build in this bill a definite provision for ring-fencing a certain percentage of the revenues generated from this industry to protect our people and reduce the harm that is visited upon them by these kind of vices. Are there any lessons learned from the sin tax that is imposed and bringing on that has brought about the sports fund? The sports funds for years has received money from sin tax, yet when we walk around this country, we cannot see the impact of these resources. Sports cannot be justified as a way of allowing gambling. Sports is an industry that should be supported to allow talented and gifted men and women in this country exploit their sports prowess to earn the top backs that other sportsmen and women are achieving. We cannot justify the building of sports stadia to allow unregulated gambling. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that we must provide an explicit exclusion for the poorest of the poor in this country not to be enticed into gambling, which is practically a game for those who have the means and the wherewithal to gamble. But even those who have had those kind of riches in the past, we have seen them reduced to destitutes through gambling. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, in controlling gambling and the industry, I think this bill ought to link the presence and the use of the KRA PIN. How can somebody who is not able to pay tax afford to gamble? And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I am proposing that I will be moving key amendments on this bill to ensure that I am providing protection for Kenyans who should not be lured into gambling. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
The MP from Mosop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion on gambling. Mr. Speaker, I support the committee who have suggested that we increase and put strict regulation on gambling in Kenya. Although personally I don't support any form of gambling, either online, offline, or whatever form of gambling in this country. Gambling, Mr. Speaker, has truly caused a lot of havoc and poverty in most homes. I have had an opportunity to experience on a close call family members and friends who have truly been demolished and impoverished by gambling as a whole. Gambling is extremely dangerous. It has made people homeless. It has made people stressed. It has destroyed the society. And as such, Mr. Speaker, I don't support, although we are talking of regulation to tighten it, but there is no form of gambling that can actually help any country. If you look at some countries, Mr. Speaker, like China, like Japan, where gambling is illegal, it has helped the country to continue to grow, and also for countries, the society and social views to get better. But countries like Australia, countries like America, in Las Vegas, where I've gotten a chance to visit, many people are stressed, many people are suffering because of this issue of gambling. As such, Kenya is leading Africa in gambling. 89% of Kenyans in Africa in gambling. Kenya leads at 89%. Nigeria is at 78%. South Africa is at 69%. So as we continue as a country, if we go at this trend, most people are going to suffer. And as such, as much as we are putting regulations to make sure that we are increasing the taxes, we are doing some things to reduce the gambling, if there was a bill or if there is any way that we can actually ban gambling in this country, it will be for the better of the country. So I stand here, Mr. Speaker, as much as I'm supporting the suggestions from this committee, at the same time, I look at the impact of the gambling in our country. A lot of young people and men who are involved in gambling has lost a lot of resources. If you look at the people in the world, the worst gambler who lost $1 billion in Australia of his own resources and his own money, because once gambling becomes addictive, you cannot stop it. You continue selling your property, you continue selling everything that you have to sustain and to support the gambling addiction that you have already contracted. As my brother mentioned, the issues of alcohol. It is like alcohol, because once gambling gets into your mind, you start thinking you are going to win, you are going to win, you are going to win. But in the process, you are losing everything that you have. So, Mr. Speaker, gambling is never good for any nation. It's never good for any person. It's never good for any family. So I don't support any form of gambling. I don't support any country that continues to even regularize and also even to regularize the issue of gambling, because it is making sure that their future generation, like our youth, are going to end up in gambling, are going to end up losing their property, and they become lazy. There is nothing free in this world. There is nothing free. Especially now, most of the gambling is done on smartphones. So you find in the villages, the young people are so hooked to the phone because they are doing gambling. You go to the small shopping centers, you find young people are very involved with the gambling. And at the end of the day, they are not involved in the manual work. They are not involved in actually working to make money out of their sweat, but they believe that they can make billions out of gambling. So I stand here, as much as we are saying we're going to support the committee report, but I suggest at some point we have to come up with a law or a bill that is going to ban gambling in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The MP for Mgwen, followed by Owen Bayer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support this bill on gambling control. Whereas we consider gambling as a very lucrative business and very relaxing whenever you gamble and win. Gambling has also adversely wiped away our young generation. The youthful generation has been adversely affected in this gambling. I've looked through the bill and I comment on several clauses, but I only have one objection that I thought the committee should look into concerning the gambling security. I feel like for the new ventures or the startups, for example, 200 million is too much. We could create, if we reduce the price, we could still have opportunities for other startups. With this 200 million, for example, we are leaving for those who are only moneyed. And most of these companies are international companies, reaping a lot of money from our youthful generation and Kenyans here. Secondly, I was looking at in the US, the tax rate is around 24%. Here, the bill is suggesting 15%. Gambling is not a so hard-earned cash. It's a soft-earned cash. And I thought 24% or anything above that should be taxed here. The rest of the money, that 24%, goes back to the government for other investments. Government acts as a only buffer zone for those who are devastated and those who have lost, those who are depressed and misled Kenyans who do gambling. So I thought increasing the percentage rate on the tax would even be better. Thirdly, I want to suggest that we stagger the tax rate. For example, based on gross income, companies who get close to say $1 billion shillings on gambling, maybe would give it a higher percentage, say 50%. Those who have less gross income, you could give them up to 15%. So that is my suggestion. The way we tax the payee, that is a similar case that we need to do for the gambling companies. Lastly, what are the mitigations that these companies are putting forward so that they can at least mitigate on the youth or the gamblers that are depressed, those who've lost hope? Gambling is two-way. I'm talking of the adverse effects of gambling. What are the mitigations that these companies have put forward? And I thought these mitigations must be included in this bill, so that either they would create psychosocial support desks to mitigate, because we've had a lot of depression